we're going to talk about Texas and the red zone. This has been an issue for 2 years now in Texas. It has gotten worse every year under Sark. It was great his first year here. I believe we were in the top 15 in the country. Then we fell back to somewhere in between the 30s and 40s. Then it was, I think, 88th or 89th 2 years ago. And then last year, we're all thinking, hey, it can't be any worse. It's got to get better. It was 111th in the country last year. And guys, we all saw how the Ohio State game ended. I thought it was very poetic. It ended that way because that is the thing that held this team back to get to the heights that it could have. So let's talk about that, Gerald. How do you think Texas's red zone offense will be better this year? And number two, why do you think that, if it will be?
Yeah, I like want to knock on wood or something and say like it has to be better, right? Like I think if Texas is going to achieve its goals for the year and achieve its goals overall, that it has to be better, right? There are folks that are picking Texas to win the national championship, right? The Athletic or On Three just put out Ari Wasserman just put out his college football playoff preview, had Texas winning the national championship there, right? If Texas is going to reach those high tech, if Texas is even going to just be nationally relevant, they have to be able to do this, right? It's something that they're going to have to do to be able to. So I'm going to say yes, and I have legitimate reasons for that, other than just like vibes and like have tos, right? But ultimately, like this is going to be, I think, a true test for Sark. Like, can he solve that problem? Because if you look at the difference in year to year, I think you can identify somebody, specific two players left the offense, and Texas had a massive drop off in their red zone projection, right? Bijan Robinson, Roshan Johnson left. Texas had a drop off. That was a little bit of a band-aid for Sark there. Now, I will say, I do think Texas is going to be better. I think the first reason is because CJ Baxter should be healthy, right? CJ Baxter coming back has the ability to do that. As much as again, I feel like I dump on Trey Wisner a lot, and that's not what I'm trying to say, but like Trey Wisner is not a red zone back by nature. Based on his size, based on his skill set, that's not what Trey Wisner does. Now, I say it every time I talk about this. Trey Wisner should never have to buy another drink in Austin. He should never pay for dinner, never have to buy another drink in Austin based on what that kid has done. 3-star kid, came in, gave Texas 1,000 yards rushing, kept the offense moving even when he shouldn't have, was slated to be RB3 coming into the year and was a 1,000-yard rusher for Texas. But he's not a red zone rusher. He's not a short yard rusher. CJ Baxter has the body style to be a 3-down guy, and that is what he's going to do for Texas, right? The other piece of that is that I think teams are going to have to respect the legs of Arch Manning. I don't think Texas is going to be a heavy QB run team, but having Arch Manning on a bootleg in the red zone is going to draw some eyes, right? The linebacker that's covering your tight end that's coming across on a drag route is going to have some bad eye discipline because he has to keep his eyes in the backfield to make a play potentially on Arch Manning. And if he doesn't do that, then Arch will tuck the ball and run and dive for the pylon, right? If he does, then the tight end, who we already know has the potential to be better than he was a year ago, right, is going to slip out and catch a pass in the back corner of the end zone. It's like there are two things that I think get CJ Baxter coming back, Arch Manning's legs. You're going to have to respect them as a defender in the red zone. I think both of those things are going to be big boons for Texas.
No, I agree. I think we'll be better. Do I think we're going to get to what we were? I believe Steve Sarkisian's even first or second year, which I think second year, like I said, we were somewhere between 30 and 40. No, I think we're probably going to rank in the 40 to 50 range is my guess. Because that'd be a gigantic jump if you're jumping like 90, 100 spots to jump back up to what you were a couple years ago. But I mean, if you can just be average, this team can win a national championship, because again, if they were average last year, they probably would have won the national championship or at least got there. So it's something that's been holding this team back the last 2 years. We saw it, guys, we've seen it 2 years in a row now. We saw Texas have 4 plays from the Washington 12-yard line, not able to score. We saw Texas have 4 plays from the Ohio State one, then get pushed back because of a bad play call and not be able to score. In fact, Ohio State scored on that. So it's something that needs to get better. It has to get better. It's something that has, kind of plagued Sark throughout his career, because with the Atlanta Falcons, that was his issue too. He was able to move the ball in the 20s, but once he got in the red zone, that was an issue. And the thing is that when Alabama won it with him as the offensive coordinator, that team had a lot more big play capability. They weren't great in the red zone. They were good enough. So hopefully Texas, that can help too. If they're just hitting those 50, 60-yard bombs for touchdowns, then you don't need to be as good as in the red zone. I do expect that to happen a little bit more this year because of Arch Manning's arm strength. And you have, I think, better athletes at the wide receiver position overall with like a Parker Livingstone, who's a really fast. Ryan Wingo's got some speed to him. I think Jack Endries is a better athlete also than Gunnar Helm. So I think that will help. But at the end of the day, the stat that I think people, and I made a video about this halfway through the year, 4.4 yards per carry. That's not going to get it done. That was 64th in the country, and that has a lot to do with the red zone production, number one. And then number two is Sark has to stick to something. We saw Sark in the Red River game a couple years ago versus Oklahoma. Well, we bring in that jumbo package, we run it twice, and then he says, no, we're going to throw a screen. I would have rather that play happen, the jumbo package, 4 times in a row. At least bang your head into the wall and say, you know what, this is either going to work or it's not. Instead of, it seems like at times he's experimenting in the red zone, like, maybe this will work. Let's throw this out there. Maybe this will work. Let's throw this out there. Instead of having a plan when he gets down there of what to do. So I think in the offseason, I'm hoping he came up like a formula of honestly 5 to 7 plays that you can just execute really well and run those in certain sequences, because I think that would work. So hopefully that happens. If not, I agree. I think Arch Manning will help out a little bit on the bootlegs, or if you just decide to run him like in the Ohio State game, you're probably just going QB sneak on the 1 yard line with Arch Manning if he's your quarterback. So I think you could see that. I also think Jack Endries helps. You know, he's more athletic than Gunnar Helm, so he can win in tight spaces. I also think he can jump a little bit better than Gunnar Helm. So, you know, if you want to put him out wide one-on-one and throw a jump ball, I'd be fine with that too. Obviously, that is not a recipe for success to throw 4 fades. We kind of saw that with AD Mitchell in the Washington game. We threw that like 2 or 3 times. And he caught one of them and he had to double clutch on that. So unless you have a freak like him, it's going to be hard to do. But overall, it has to be better. I do think it's going to be better. I'm just not sure how much better it's going to be.
Yeah, you mentioned Endries and Archie's feet. I wonder, and this is something I wanted to see last year as well in that Arch Manning package, is like that Tim Tebow style, like pop pass where you take 2 steps, step back and jump, kind of throw it that jump pass. I'd love to see something like that. And I will say, like, we have to put like an asterisk on the Ohio State game, because correct me if I'm wrong, Texas had a touchdown or should have had a touchdown that was wiped off via Ohio State penalty. I believe they had to grab a guy to keep him from scoring or being wide open. So like, you know, Sark did draw up a touchdown play in there, and then Ohio State had to cheat to keep them from doing that. But neither here nor there. You should have to run a toss play on the goal line. The toss play was the differentiator there. If you have CJ Baxter, you have Arch Manning's legs, you have Jack Endries, like you mentioned, that tight end. I think you have some guys who can catch. The cat that they just signed from Stanford is another guy who likes to catch an end zone fade in that back corner. So I think there's options there. Again, knock on wood, Texas has to be better in the red zone.
Yeah, I mean, I didn't think it could get any worse from 2 years ago when we were ranked 89th, or no, we were ranked 90th and Iowa was ranked 89th. So I thought, you can't get much worse than that. Because remember, 2 years ago, I was like one of the worst offensive teams in the history of college football. And then last year we were 111th. So it got worse. So, I mean, really, unless you're ranked last this year, it can't get much worse. So I'm hoping we finally fix it.
Fingers crossed, man.